I'm gonna have to hydrate for this one. This is exciting. Anti-aging and protein. This is so exciting. So protein, everyone talks so much about protein today. I love protein. Heck, I even got my kid running around the house talking about protein. He's like, protein, protein. I'm like, yeah, yeah. So he's gonna be buff. Last episode, we're talking the best ways to get your protein in a day, especially if you're watching your calories. Check that out if you haven't. I'll try and get a show note or a card to pop up or something if I can figure it out. We know and have talked about the benefits of protein when it comes to muscle gain, fat loss as well. We've gone into more thorough detail on it, but these are some somewhat well known benefits of protein. But now we've got some new studies that have come out of the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition this year regarding aging and protein. Now, I'm going to quote the study here in reference to where it's a little different than other anti aging studies. I think you might like this. And I quote, protein intake plays an important role in maintaining the health status of older adults. However, few epidemiologic studies examine midlife protein intake in relation to healthy aging. Well, this one does. Hot damn. Now, this study was enormous. It was of 50,000 women, nurses, and they followed them over the course of 30 years. That's amazing in terms of, well, term. Average ages were initially in the 40s of this study and then followed these people well into their 70s. So, again, midlife starting in the 40s and going well into the 70s. A very cool perspective. I'm already intrigued. This whets my curiosity whistle. No, that didn't sound good, Al. Please remember to edit that out. Curiosity whistle. So again, this study in a nutshell is dealing with protein intake and different variations in protein intake in type and quantity. Could that be foreshadowing some exciting developments later? It could. So we start our study beginning at midlife and the effects on aging for the next 30 years or so. And specifically, it deals with what we all want to know about healthy aging or health span. That's the quality of life, not just the longevity of it. So, first question we have is what's considered healthy aging? I'm going to quote the study again. The study defines it as being free of chronic diseases, including cancer, all but non melanoma skin cancer, type 2 diabetes, which we talked about a lot last episode during our Monjaro deep dive, chronic heart disease, and a few other heart dysfunctions which require surgery, stroke, kidney failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, and some other variations I frankly have never heard of. And they also added healthy aging also meant the subjects were free from impairment in memory or physical function, as well as being in good mental health. So, as far as I'm concerned, even if the person was physically not suffering from the diseases mentioned and they were living to a ripe old age, if they weren't mentally competent or perhaps had something like Alzheimer's, that would be enough for the study to not consider them healthy. Bottom line, in my humble opinion, it seems like they listed enough crappy things that you don't want that if they're defining healthy aging as not having any of those things, it's a pretty intricate study with pretty stern qualifications on the word healthy. And I really like that. It's not like they're saying if you're 85 years old and you can still walk and chew most of your food, we're calling you healthy. I can barely walk today. Yesterday was leg day, bruh. So I like the parameters a lot. What I also like about this study is it seems to me, rather than just looking at the study from a perspective of, again, how long did the participants live for, longevity, this seems much more to have to do with like quality of life. And that plays into a lot of what we talk about here on Caffeinated. A lot of people wouldn't want to live a really long time if they didn't have quality of life. I think one goes in hand with the other. So the results of this study regarding protein intake, it showed quite clearly protein intake across all the variabilities as being strongly linked to healthy aging. It's also incredibly interesting and important, I point out, as someone who emphasizes protein a lot in this show, that other studies have tried to link high protein diets with heart disease, cancer, and other diseases, all kinds of not good stuff. And this study is kind of showing the opposite. Now, as for the study itself, something to also keep in mind is this is a huge amount of people. And this study is going on for a really long time. This isn't like a 2-week controlled clinical trial where they're measuring how much people are eating every day and then monitoring them in a lab all week. You can't control a study this big for that long. And even without that control, the results are pretty terrific. The thing I find also super interesting about this study, here on Caffeinated, you hear me talk a lot about protein again regarding muscle gain and fat loss goals. And for good reason. It's really important. We talk about the thermic effect of protein. We talk about satiety. We talk about the caloric implications of protein, right? That was a lot of last week. It's all valid stuff. And I usually recommend people get a gram a day per pound of body weight. That's kind of what most people who talk about this stuff would probably recommend. This study shows the benefits of protein in the diet and healthy aging with way less protein. We're looking at a difference in protein intake starting at 57 grams of protein a day, then 67 grams, 73 grams, 78 grams, and then 89 grams. This is not an enormous amount of protein at all. Even if you're like a really small 45-year-old that becomes an even smaller 75-year-old person over the course of the study, I mean, it's not really a ton of protein. Even if you were 100 pounds, I mean, I curl 100-pound dumbbells. That's like me curling 2 old people. I don't curl hundreds, but I do curl old people. Edit that out. It doesn't sound good. Keep saying things that don't sound good today. Even if you were 100 pounds, at the upper echelons of this study, you're not even getting 1 gram per pound of body weight. As far as the percent of the calories in their day, the lower range of the study is at about 14% of their daily calories from protein. This is more in line with what's considered normal dietary guidelines today, which in my opinion doesn't emphasize protein enough, all the way up to about 23%, which is considered a high protein diet. I actually find I only eat a little more than that in a day in terms of protein, maybe 26 to 27%, and even that's not enormous compared to my daily calorie intake. Another side note, which I find really cool, is as the people in this study ate more protein, they were also shown to be consuming fewer calories in general. Well, why would that be? Well, again, like we talked about in some of our fat loss and other episodes. One of the reasons protein is such a great macronutrient is because it's so satiating. So I would go out on a limb and say, if you show me someone who's gradually increasing their protein intake, I would not be surprised if you're also showing me someone who's, in effect, gradually eating less, hence decreasing their BMI and also increasing lifespan and the quality of life. I mean, that's what the study shows. These things kind of all tie in together, which is really cool. Now, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but if increasing the protein alone just helped people eat less and decrease their BMI, which the study wasn't studying, mind you, that could be doing the trick enough to prevent the chronic diseases we mentioned earlier or contribute to the healthier lifespan or health span the study points to. It was also shown that as we saw a gradual increase in protein consumption, we also saw a direct decrease in alcohol consumption and a direct decrease in the subject's likelihood of being a current smoker. It makes me wonder if there's a correlation with people simply being more health conscious in regards to the importance of protein. These same people who might be motivated to eat more protein to support their health, I'm thinking they're also likely to not drink as much or smoke, which both do virtually nothing to help your health. So yeah, this part of the study shows me people who are trying to be more healthy, in my opinion, recognize the importance of protein. Now, this study also shows something interesting regarding substitutions with protein, like really interesting. First off, basically, no matter what nutrient you were substituting in your diet for protein, there were improvements in the study due to the substitution. More protein was just better, period. But as to what kind of protein, were there differences among the classes of proteins? Oh yeah, there were. But let's add a little background on protein first. When we talk about protein sometimes and which protein is best for our muscles, we often talk about the bioavailability of the protein. That just means how easy it is for the body to absorb, digest, and use the protein. The more bioavailable it is, the better it is. It's generally been shown that animal sources of protein, like whey and casein protein, to be more bioavailable than plant sources of protein. Now, before you start posting nasty comments, my vegetably inclined friends, some plant sources do have good bioavailability as well. Like pea protein, for example, that's one of the best. So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, that can be a great option. Now, the second thing we often look at in choosing a protein is how complete a protein is. Animal proteins like whey protein are more complete versus plant proteins. And this is because they have more BCAAs or branched chain amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine. This is important for protein muscle synthesis and muscle building. This becomes even more important in this study as well because another link to mortality as people age is muscle mass or lack thereof. So to be building muscle and retaining muscle as we age is also enormously important for quality of life. As people lose muscle as they age, their overall health generally declines as well. Doesn't mean you can't maintain or build muscle with plant sources. You just may have to be more creative with your sources to get a complete amino acid profile in the protein. So, long story short, in regards to muscle building and vicariously fat loss, both which are important to health span and longevity, animal proteins are often preferred versus plant proteins, unless your diet obviously restricts animal protein sources for whatever your reason is. So you can imagine why I was a little surprised initially by what I read next. This study showed even though all the protein groups had great increases in health span, consuming more protein in general, the plant protein group was leaps and bounds above the rest. It was actually meat protein last, then dairy protein, and then plant protein in number one. All were good. Plant protein was just significantly more beneficial regarding healthy aging. Now, I'm a guy that eats animal, dairy, and plant proteins. So what do I think of this? Is this bad news for me? No, I don't think so. First off, it's not completely surprising. Let's start here. Do I think plant protein should be a healthy part of a diet? Absolutely, I do. I don't even necessarily think it's bad to sub out some animal proteins for plant proteins. But I do think there are two factors that come into mind as to why the plant protein group may have done better than the other protein groups. Might not be what you think. Number one, you're generally not injecting vegetables with steroids and hormones. This study showed how much protein people were eating and what general kinds, with a wide range of variability, but it didn't dissect if they were buying organic or free range or grass-fed protein versus not. I could most definitely see an argument being made that what animals are injected with today could cause way more potential health adverse effects than even the pesticides that are sprayed on our agriculture today, and that's also not so good. Keep in mind, when pesticides are sprayed on plants, it's sometimes on skins that we don't even eat. It doesn't mean we can't get adverse effects from those pesticides, but in contrast, when steroids and antibiotics are injected into the animals we often eat, there's no getting around them. So, number one, plants could just be the lesser of two evils. The pesticides could be doing less damage than the other stuff. This could all be how your food is treated or prepared before it gets to you. Now, I don't think for a second it's the actual protein in the plants causing the benefit. For one thing, because the plant protein is generally not as bioavailable, and it also isn't as complete a protein via the branched chain amino acids profile, like we said earlier. So is a less complete protein that your body can't use as much of healthier? Probably not. I think it's all the extra crap that can go into meat today that's making the difference. Number two reason, fiber. The thing our carnivore friends don't really believe is important, and that's okay, my paleo friends. Agree to disagree. But fiber has been shown in study after study to increase healthy lifespan and lower mortality rates as well. Yeah, it's actually been shown to help people maintain a healthy weight. According to a 2015 meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Epidemiology, oh my God, I said it right that time, people who consumed the most fiber were 19% less likely to die during study periods of up to a decade than those who consumed the least. This study analyzed 17 studies with more than 980,000 participants and found that every 10 grams of fiber consumed reduced the risk of mortality by 10%. A 2021 study in the Journal of Gerontology found that older people who ate fiber-rich diets were 80% more likely to live longer and stay healthier than those that didn't. So let's break it down, man. I mean, for every 10% you increase your fiber, you reduce mortality by 10% as well? That's pretty good. It helps with digestion. It helps with cholesterol. It helps with blood sugar. It's good stuff. I mean, I would get off the anti-fiber hype train if you find yourself on it. So if you're eating more protein at the expense of getting fiber from plant sources, that could be problematic as well. And this study may be showing just that. So what's the solution? And what's my conclusion after reading the study? I think it's pretty simple, actually. Make sure you're getting enough protein in your diet from a variety of sources that will help you in the muscle mass and fat loss columns, and also be sure to emphasize fiber in your diet as well. This can be getting protein from plant sources if you want. Another good idea, if and when you're consuming animal products like I do, the more organic and grass-fed you can get, the better. I know that can be tough to do, especially if you're eating out or on a budget, but hey, do your best. I mean, I don't always eat organic or grass-fed, but I certainly try to. It's a funny study though, and this is also the thing that I like the best about it. On one hand, you have the people who demonize animal protein, or even protein in general. And this study clearly shows the more protein people were eating, there was a direct positive correlation with their health spans. And this was a long study. This wasn't a few weeks or a few years even. This was 30 years. So this kind of nicks the anti-protein people, in this study at least. On the other hand, you have people who perhaps, I wouldn't say demonize, like we'll talk about next, but negate the positive effects of fiber in our diets. And this very long, very intricate, very wide study clearly shows the benefits of plants in our diet as well, in the form of protein, of course, but including fiber nonetheless. So, again, this doesn't help your anti fiber movement either, or your bowel movements. You see what I did there, Al? It seems like all things in life to me, balance may be best. Eat a balanced diet, get enough protein, get enough fiber, and whatever you're eating, try and get it from clean sources, whether it be meat, dairy, or vegetable. If you do that, I think the cards will be in your favor. So that's the study out of the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Of course, I am linking below if you'd like to read it yourself. You should. The most recent results were published earlier this year. But as it's making the rounds online, I was just made aware of it. So, hey, we're talking about it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, for all the anti-protein and anti-plant and anti-fiber people that I've angered, be gentle with me, all right? I'm not such a bad guy.